Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're tackling something really fascinating. It's a book from 1999, written by two Chinese colonels that some people say predicted the future of warfare. It's been called prophetic, it's been called controversial, and it totally tried to flip the script on what conflict even means in the 21st century.
So the book kicks off with this huge, bold claim. The textbook definition of war, it's totally obsolete. Everything we've learned, from the classic strategists like Sun Tzu all the way to modern military doctrine, they argued it was becoming dangerously out of date.
Well, to figure that out, we have to look at what triggered this whole idea. The authors, these two colonels, Chao Liang and Wang Shongsui, they watched the U.S. military in Operation Desert Storm, and what they saw, it led them to a pretty stunning conclusion. They realized that America's high-tech, conventional military was so powerful, so dominant, that it was basically forcing everyone else to change the game. You couldn't compete head-on. So adversaries had to get creative, move off the traditional battlefield, and find totally new ways to fight. The old rulebook, it was being thrown out the window.
Okay, so let's get into what they called the outdated war machine. To really get what they're saying, you gotta put yourself back in their shoes, right? This is the late 1990s. The world is in this massive state of flux, and all the old rules and certainties, they were just falling apart. And this table here, it just lays it out so perfectly. Look at the old security environment. During the Cold War, things were, well, not simple, but predictable, right? You had one big threat, the Soviet Union. The lines were clear. But then look at the new environment. Threats are diverse, they're unclear, they're covert. They can pop up anywhere, from anywhere. We're talking nation-states, sure, but also all kinds of non-state groups. And the key thing is, these new players, they're not going to play by the old rules. This leads to one of my favorite analogies in the book. They say professional armies are like these gigantic dinosaurs, huge, powerful, but kind of slow and clumsy. And their adversaries, they're like rodents with great powers of survival. Small, agile, and they don't fight by the dinosaurs' rules. It's a fantastic image, right? A massive, high-tech military is built to fight another massive, high-tech military. But what happens when your enemy doesn't show up with tanks and jets? It's like a world-class chef who only knows how to cook lobster, and suddenly their opponent only eats corn cobs. All that specialized skill becomes useless.
So if the old war machine is outdated, what replaces it? This brings us to what's really the heart of their whole thesis, the new arsenals of power. And the big idea here is that what we even call a weapon has totally changed.
They put it this way. Commonplace things that are close to them can also become weapons with which to engage in war. Think about that. The key takeaway is that in this new era, literally anything can be weaponized. We're talking the stock market, a computer network, a media story. The battlefield isn't some patch of dirt anymore, it's everywhere. Let's look at a concrete example, financial warfare. Now this was super controversial at the time. The authors pointed directly at financier George Soros and his currency speculation in East Asia. From their point of view, this wasn't just some guy playing the market. No, they saw it as a full-blown attack, a form of non-military warfare. They argued that an attack with financial tools could actually be more devastating than a traditional military one. They went so far as to call him a financial terrorist. Pretty strong words.
And then there's network warfare. I mean, remember, this is 1999. Long before cyber attacks were in the news every single day, these guys were predicting a future where hackers could cause absolute chaos. They saw that a really smart cyber attack could paralyze a country's critical infrastructure and bring it to its knees, all without a single shot being fired. It was incredibly prescient.
Okay, and media warfare. This is another big one. When they looked back at the Gulf War, they didn't just see tanks and planes. They saw an absolute masterclass in controlling information. They claimed that the media and the U.S. military basically acted like a joint force. Their goal? To shape how the entire world saw the conflict, making sure the public only got the version of the story the military wanted them to see.
So for the authors, all these things, the financial attacks, the terrorist attacks by groups like bin Laden's, even the gas attack on the Tokyo subway or hackers messing with the internet, these were not just random separate events. No, they saw them as the first signs, the embryonic forms of a totally new kind of warfare. They have all these names for it, semi-warfare, quasi-warfare, but the point was the same. Each one of these was proof that the very DNA of conflict was changing right before their eyes.
All right, so you've got financial attacks, cyber attacks, media manipulation. How does this all fit together? Well, that brings us to their big unifying theory, war without rules, or as they called it, unrestricted warfare. This is where they pull all those different threads together. And this comparison here, it just makes it crystal clear. You've got limited warfare on one side, that's the old way. Nations fighting each other, following established rules. But on the other side, you have unrestricted warfare. This is a fight with state and non-state players who follow no rules. They use any and every means possible to win. It's not a game with rules anymore, it's a fight with none.
So how do you actually do this? They call it the cocktail combination method. I love this name. The idea is you don't just use one new trick. You become a bartender of conflict. You select your target and then you start mixing. You combine military means with non-military means. You break down all the boundaries and limits, all to hit your strategic goal. It's about creating the perfect custom blended attack.
And here's a look at what the menu for that cocktail might include. You've got military, transmilitary, and non-military domains. So just imagine this. You're trying to achieve one single goal. So you combine a conventional military threat with diplomatic pressure, a network attack on their banks, and a trade war. See how that works? Each piece makes the other pieces stronger. It creates this multi-front attack that's almost impossible to defend against if you're still thinking in the old limited warfare mindset.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question. Why are we still talking about a book from 1999? Why does it matter today? Well, because its framework for understanding this new kind of unseen battlefield seems chillingly accurate for describing a lot of what's happening in the world right now.
The authors made this incredible point. They said, once you throw out the old rules, the battlefield becomes basically infinite. It's not a place you can find on a map anymore. It's everywhere. It's in our social lives, our economies, and as they so poetically put it, it even extends into psychological spaces.
And in a world like that, simple questions suddenly get really hard. Like, who are our enemies? Who are our friends? The book says these questions become complicated, confusing, and hard to get hold of. Alliances are always shifting. Your enemy might not even be another country. It could be a corporation, a shadowy group, or even just one person.
And this really breaks down the most fundamental lines we used to draw. The line between a soldier and a civilian, between warfare and, well, not warfare, it just gets completely erased. I mean, think about it. If a hacker can take down your power grid or a banker can collapse your economy, what does the word soldier even mean anymore? The author's answer is that the distinction is gone. Anyone can be a combatant.
And so we're left with this really unsettling final question. When war has no limits, where does the battlefield end? It's a challenge to everything we think we know about conflict and security. In a world where anything can be a weapon, anyone can be a soldier, and the battlefield is everywhere, well, that's a reality that feels more relevant today than it ever did back in 1999.